When you're tasked with creating the same sort of genre of a game every single year, that must be quite an undertaking for development team to find new ways to make the game feel fresh to warrant a purchase every year, while still very strictly sticking to that similar game. And to do so with a license, especially one like the F1, is no easy task. But once again, Codemasters have come out with quite potentially one of the most satisfying racing games out there, not only for fans of F1, but even those who just like racing games, whether it is at a very hardcore level, like to very specific metrics, which this game offers in incredible detail that you don't really see anywhere else, or if you just want a very straightforward arcade game, at least in the sense of degrading of tires or fuel usage or anything like that. It's just so satisfying to play, whatever your skill level or whatever type of challenge you're looking for. I think already you can see right away just how spectacular this game looks. Everything just feels crisp and clear, and it looks incredible. The recreation of all these tracks is pretty spectacular, to be honest. I know I'll probably use that word a lot, but it just looks so good. It runs so well. It's a buttery smooth 60 frames a second. I played this on Xbox One X and I never had one moment of any sort of feeling of slowdown, which is critical for a game like F1, especially for those that are really hardcore, where it's not about seconds or even tens or hundreds of seconds, it's about thousands of seconds. And when you're in a race of 40, 50, 60 laps, knocking off a few thousandths of a second each lap or over time feels very satisfying as you really fall into the rhythm. And that's something this game has that you don't really get in other racing games. There is a rhythm to it. There is a sort of not routine you go through, but a sense of, like I said, a rhythm you get into that it feels really satisfying once you find your groove. Once you find that sense of, okay, I press hard on the accelerator here, brake in real softly, accelerate early out of this corner. And it's one of those things where you may not learn all the sort of good ways to tackle every single corner after the first even 10, 15, 20, 30 laps. It's by the time you get to the end and you realize just how much this track has sort of ingrained in your brain in the best possible way. And that goes all the way through then to the gameplay, because what's the point of doing the same tracks so much in a race if the controls aren't there? And to be honest, this is probably the best feeling game I've ever played, and this is only on a controller. I didn't even get the opportunity to play this with a wheel, so I can only imagine how much that's amplified. But even with a controller, every little turn and movement feels smooth and satisfying. There are no like moments where you feel like the what you do and sort of how you move the analog stick doesn't exactly go with the wheel. Everything just feels so satisfying, and it's to the, like I said, it's to the point where it's honestly probably like perfection. Like I think it's the most satisfying and well done control I've ever played. And the thing about it is, it's not like it's just the same. As the race goes on, there are strategies that you need to apply in terms of your tires that you've used, how heavy you're braking. Like you can go that granular with it, where if you want a simulation experience, you will get the sense that you need to keep an eye on your tires, that you're braking really heavily going into corners. If that's the case, you may need to go into the pit a little bit earlier than anticipated, because you will lose traction, you will lose a bit of grip, and you will feel that. And it's not to the sense that you'll spin out like crazy as soon as you press down the accelerator, but you will feel yourself sort of, your brake doesn't feel as efficient, or coming out of a corner, pressing down the accelerator doesn't feel as much you're in control as you were before. And then when the weather kicks in, that gives a whole different entire feeling to it, and it's just, like I said, it's so good. And like, it's even goes beyond just sort of the career mode or making a name for yourself or the tournaments that they have. You can go from one shot qualifying, which is just one lap of that track, and that's where you get positioned in the line out. You can do the whole full weekend where there's practice sessions and qualifying rounds and all that, and you've got little goals to hit for each of them to sort of learn the track, learn your capabilities within this track and what the team can do. And if you want that authentic experience, it's there, and it feels incredibly cool. But it goes beyond that. You have these invitational events in the championship series where you get to sort of, they look back rather than sticking to the present, where you get to control some of the classic cars over the decades on these tracks, and you've got to do things like time trials or overtakes or just finish out a race. And to me, it just adds so much more life to the game, so much more longevity, that there's these challenges in place where you don't just pick the car you're using for the 2018 season. You get to pick some of the classics over the years. So for fans of F1, there's just so much cool moments to sort of see these cars once more that you probably haven't seen in a game before, because they go all the way back decades, and it's just so cool to do something like that. They're not that long either, so if you're in the mood for just jumping in for a quick few laps around or something like that, it's really cool. It's one of those games where you're like, oh, it's an F1 thing. Like, if you're not an F1 fan, you won't enjoy the game. I totally disagree. I think if you're any sort of car or racing fan, this is an incredible game, and I cannot recommend it enough. It's just so good. It's honestly the best feeling racing game I've ever played, and I think everyone should play it, whether you're an F1 fan or not.